Good morning, kids. Today we're going to talk about a Jewish celebration called Purim. It's a story in the Bible about a girl named Esther. She's our hero. But there's also a bad guy named Haman. And when the Jews talk about this story, they make noise so nobody can hear the name of Haman, the evil guy. We're going to do our lesson a little backwards today, and we're going to start with our craft so that when we tell the story of Esther and Haman, you can use your noisemakers to blot out the name of Haman. To make our noisemakers, you need three simple things. You need a container. It could be an Easter egg, a box, a piece of paper, plastic container, water bottle, or even a jar. You're going to need small items to make the noise. I recommend beans or small rocks from your garden. And you're going to need some decorating supplies. You can get fancy with stickers, glitter, paints, or just simply use cutout paper and markers. I'm going to use the jar because I think that makes the most noise. So I put about a handful of beans in my jar. Close it. Now I'm going to use paper. So I trace the jar. Cut out my paper. I'm going to glue it to the top of my jar. I'll just glue a little bit along the outside. I'm going to decorate it with the initials of my children.
J for joy, E for esperanza, and B for bed.
You don't have to decorate it. Just remember, the key is to use things around your house so your parents aren't going to any expense. And now I've got my, Now I have my noisemaker. You can make one and meet me back here when we're done for the start of the story. Bye-bye. The Jewish people in Israel were taken into captivity by the Babylonians, and they were transported from Jerusalem to Babylon, and then that became Persia. While in Persia, there is the story of Queen Esther. King Xerxes needed a queen, so his personal attendants suggested, "Let us search the empire to find beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint agents in each province to bring these beautiful young women into the royal harem at the fortress of Susa. Haggai, the king's unit in charge of the harem, will see that they are all given beauty treatments. After that, the young woman who pleases the king will be made the queen." This advice was very appealing to the king, so he put the plan into effect. At that time, there was a Jewish man in Susa whose name was Mordecai. This man had a very beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her into his family and raised her as his own daughter. As a result of the king's decree, Esther, along with many other women, were brought to the king's harem at the fortress of Susa and placed in Haggai's care. Haggai was very impressed with Esther and treated her kindly. He quickly ordered a special menu for her and provided her with beauty treatments. Esther had not told anyone of her nationality and family background because Mordecai had directed her not to do so. Every day, Mordecai would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what was happening to her. When it was Esther's turn to go to the king, she accepted the advice of Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the harem. She asked for nothing except what he suggested, and she was admired by everyone who saw her. Now, as the women came before the king, he found he didn't care for any one of them. But the king loved Esther more than any of the other young women. He was so delighted with her that he set the royal crown on her head and declared her queen. Sometime later, King Xerxes promoted Haman over all the other nobles, making him the most powerful official in the empire. All the king's officials would bow down before Haman to show him respect whenever he passed by, for so the king had commanded. But Mordecai refused to bow down or show him respect. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, and he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. Then Haman approached King Xerxes and said, "There is a certain race of people scattered through all the provinces of your empire who keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their laws are different from those of any other people, and they refuse to obey the laws of the king. So it is not in the king's interest to let them live. If it please the king, issue a decree that they may be destroyed." The king agreed, confirming his decision by removing his signet ring from his finger and giving it to Haman, the enemy of the Jews. The king said, "The money and the people are both yours to do with, as you see fit." Dispatches were sent by swift messengers into all the provinces of the empire, giving the order that all Jews, young and old, including women and children, must be killed, slaughtered, and annihilated on a single day. When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city, crying with a loud and bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people lay in burlap and ashes. Mordecai asked Esther to go to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people. She answered, "All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his golden scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. Mordecai replied to Esther, "Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all the other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place. But you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this?" Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, "Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die." So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. On the 3rd day of the fast, Esther put on her royal robes and entered the inner court of the palace, just across from the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne, facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing there in the inner court, he welcomed her and held out the golden scepter to her. So Esther approached and touched the end of the scepter. Then the king asked her, "What do you want, Queen Esther? What is your request? I will give it to you even if it is half the kingdom." And Esther replied, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for the king." And while they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, "Now tell me what you really want. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." Esther replied, "This is my request and my deepest wish. If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request and do what I asked, please come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet, and I will prepare for you. Then I will explain what this is all about." So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. On this second occasion, while they were drinking wine, the king again said to Esther, "Tell me what you want, Queen Esther. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." Queen Esther replied, "If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people be spared. For my people and I have been sold to those who would kill, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would remain quiet, for that would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king." "Who would do such a thing?" King Xerxes commanded. "Who would be so presumptuous as to touch you?" Esther replied, "This wicked Haman is our adversary and our enemy." One of the king's eunuchs said, "Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 70 feet tall in his own courtyard. He intended to use it to impale Mordecai, the man who saved the king from assassination." "Then impale Haman on it," the king ordered. On that same day, King Xerxes gave the property of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther. Then Mordecai was brought before the king, for Esther had told the king how they were related. The king took off his signet ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai to be in charge of Haman's property. The king's decree gave the Jews in every city authority to unite to defend their lives if anyone tried to kill them or take their property away. The Jews were filled with joy and gladness and were honored everywhere. In every province and city, wherever the king's decree arrived, the Jews rejoiced and had a great celebration and declared a public festival and holiday. And many of the people of the land became Jews themselves, for they feared what the Jews might do to them. Well, I hope you enjoyed the lesson for today. For our closing activity, we're going to do something to help us remember the lesson we learned. I'd like you to go and talk to your parents right now. Ask them ways that they have seen God protect you and your family, just like he did Esther and the Jews in Persia. We're going to stop this video and take some time to talk to them. Come on back when you're ready to begin. The activity we're going to do is make a crown. So you're going to need a piece of paper and you're going to draw the outline of a crown on it. On the crown, you're going to create 3 gemstones, and in each of the gemstones, you're going to write one of the things your family came up with, the areas of how he protects you. I chose were my home, my health, and my finances. Okay? On the strip of the crown, you're going to write, God saves and protects. Then cut out your crown. And attach it to the baseball cap with paper clips. And there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you always remember that in all circumstances, God is with you and your family, and He will protect you through all things. Bye-bye.